So I think we can all say that Liam Lawson had a really poor weekend in Australia and not the way he wanted to start his Red Bull career at all. And he might have already messed his entire Red Bull career up. Keep watching to find out why. So in Australia, as I said, Liam Lawson had a pretty terrible weekend. He barely had any running in practice, which put him on the back foot going into qualifying, only for him to then get put out in Q1, which compared to Max Verstappen getting third in qualifying in Q3, then is simply not good enough. Lawson then went on to crash out of the race, and all it did was remind me of Pierre, Gasly and Alex Albon during their Red Bull careers. And we all heard what Marko Helmut... Marko Helmut. What a name, Marko Helmut. Anyway, we all heard what I nearly said it again. And we heard what Helmut Marko said about Isaac Hadjar when he was just crying in the paddock after he crashed out on a formation lap. He went on to say it was embarrassing, which in my opinion is not the way to be treating one of your drivers at all. That's not going to give him any confidence. So my thinking here is, if he's having a go at Isaac Hadjar, who's not even in the main Red Bull team, for crying in the paddock because he crashed out, showing that he cares, then what would he have said to Liam Lawson? I can imagine he would have been fairly critical towards Liam Lawson, which to be fair would have been rightly so, but how would he have said that in the way, how would he have come across saying that? Would it have been constructive criticism, or would it have just been, Liam, you're shit, you're getting booted out of the team next season already? Now I'm going under the assumption here that Helmut Marko did say something to Liam Lawson after the race, which he probably did, it's more than likely. And now I feel Liam Lawson's going to be under a lot of pressure, especially in China. And now for Liam Lawson, it's all about how he can handle that pressure. I might be being a little bit over dramatic here, but I feel like Liam Lawson's seat is already under threat. As I have said many times, that we all know how ruthless Red Bull are with their second driver. But one thing I can say for Liam Lawson, and to be fair to him, he has shown before he can handle pressure. For example, in 2023, he came in to replace Daniel Ricciardo. Now, when he came in to replace Daniel Ricciardo, he had to show to Red Bull and maybe other F1 teams that he's an F1 worthy driver and he's good enough to be in the sport, which he did. In Singapore, most of the other Red Bull drivers were struggling. Max Verstappen didn't even get into Q3. In fact, Liam Lawson was the only Red Bull driver to get into Q3 during that Singapore weekend, and he was in the AlphaTauri, not even the main Red Bull car. Again, last season, he got into the V car to show Christian Horner and Helmut Marko that he's good enough to be a Red Bull driver, and clearly he did, otherwise they wouldn't have put him in the seat. But now for me, this is Liam Lawson's biggest challenge. Can he do what Pierre Gasly, Sergio Perez and Alex Albon all couldn't do and keep his Red Bull seat after underperforming? Could he even maybe get close to Max Verstappen? I say get close because there's no chance at the moment anyway anyone is beating Max Verstappen in that Red Bull. The Red Bull is solely designed around Max Verstappen's driving style, and Max Verstappen has a different driving style to pretty much everyone else on the grid. Because of that, it makes it really hard for the second Red Bull driver to get the best out of the car and even get close to Max. If the second driver can get even within 2/10 of Max Verstappen, then they're doing a pretty good job. However, despite all that, I actually think Liam Lawson's seat is safe for now. Red Bull haven't really got many other options. Yes, they've got Yuki Tsunoda, but it's so clear they don't want Yuki Tsunoda in the car, otherwise they would have put him in there by now. This is because despite Yuki Tsunoda trying his hardest to show Red Bull why he's the better driver than Liam Lawson, for some whatever reason, Red Bull clearly don't want Yuki Tsunoda in the car. And even if they do give Yuki Tsunoda the seat halfway through the season because Lawson may not do good enough, then I feel like Red Bull still won't keep him on for 2026. And I don't think Isaac Hadjar is going to be going anywhere near the main Red Bull team after what Helmut Marko said after the Australian Grand Prix. So Red Bull at the moment are stuck with Liam Lawson, which will give Lawson a chance to reset and get used to the car even more. Another problem for Liam Lawson is that most of the tracks coming up he doesn't really have too much experience on, apart from Suzuka, as obviously he raced in Suzuka when he was at Super Formula. I think the main question is, how is Australia going to affect Liam Lawson's confidence and his mindset? He might be thinking going into China, well, Australia was a track I've had no experience on, so I'm going to China, another track I've had no experience on. If I did so poor in Australia, how am I going to do any better in China? And I feel like if Liam Lawson does have a really poor weekend in China, then I don't think it will just be Christian Horner and Helmut Marko unfairly criticising him. I think the media will start to get on his back as well. For me, confidence has always been the main issue with a Red Bull second driver when it comes to them underperforming and not being able to keep their seats. F1's all about momentum and being able to perform consistently week in, week out. For example, towards the end of last season, Lewis Hamilton, arguably one of the greatest F1 qualifiers ever. I'm not just saying that as a Hamilton fan, it's true, he's got the most pole positions in history. We could see at the end of last season when he was really struggling in qualifying, you could see how deflated he was in the post-race interviews, and he was just saying, I'm too slow now. And you could tell that it really knocked Lewis's confidence. And if that's happening to Lewis Hamilton, one of the most experienced drivers on the grid, then what's that going to do for for Liam Lawson's confidence, a driver who's not even had 20 races yet or even a full season in F1. Basically what I'm trying to say is if Liam Lawson struggled so much in Australia where he had no experience, and China's a similar scenario and he might feel like he's going to struggle there again. And if he has a poor weekend in China, then that's 2 bad races in a row for Liam Lawson. That's going to get to his head, and then you never know, he might start underperforming and not being able to drive a car to his best ability. I will be honest, I thought Lawson's performance in Australia was really poor regardless of engine issues and lack of running in practice. And to be honest, I may not have thought this if it wasn't for Kimi Antonelli. Antonelli also had a really poor qualifying, damaging his car in Q1 and costing himself 3/10 down per straight, which obviously led to his exit in Q1. However, in a race, he was still able to go all the way from the back of the grid right to P4, and he was making some pretty outrageous overtakes along the way. I saw when he overtook someone around the outside of turn 9 and turn 10, a really fast left-right hander. And with the Red Bull, from what I've seen, being a better car than the Mercedes, then Liam Lawson should have also been able to come through the field. He's more experienced than Kimi Antonelli, but he still wasn't able to do anything. Compared to Kimi Antonelli, Liam Lawson was very poor in Australia. Don't get me wrong, right? I think Liam Lawson's an incredible driver and has probably got some of the most potential out of any other driver on the grid. However, he needs to start showing what he can do in the Red Bull. Yes, it's only been one race, but that one race probably has knocked this confidence quite a bit, and we need to see him build that confidence back up and start performing. If he does start performing, then I think he will be fine and he will keep his seat, obviously, but I feel like if this continues how it went in Australia, then his seat is going to be under jeopardy because we know what Red Bull do with their second drivers when they underperform. I honestly hope it doesn't happen because I do genuinely think Liam Lawson's one of the better drivers on the grid, but he does need to improve massively. Anyway, let me know your thoughts on that in the comments. I'd love to hear them. Subscribe to the channel for more F1 content. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one.